Oh,
Greetings, everybody. My guest here is wow, I lost my notes. Mister Scott Rouse, who wow was a
who
music
hasn't had a shower and hasn't shaved
Scott
because I'm
Rouse.
late. I was supposed to be here, just so y'all know, I was supposed to be here at 1 o'clock. And then at 1:15, I was in the middle of something. And I got your email. I was like, oh my God, I thought it was at 2. So I'm so sorry, man. That's all my fault. I'm sorry I'm so
Let
late.
me go
But look
back to
at
this
this.
view.
Wow.
I'll go back to this view to take the pressure off. Scott Rouse. Oh my gosh, a big music producer. Then one of the founding, if not the founding member of the behavior panel, body language expert, has been on TV countless times with different news outlets providing commentary, works with Fortune 500 companies, uh, body language membership, body language tactics, true crime workshop. You got a television show that's coming out.
Yeah. Yeah. We're excited about that. It's
Oh
going to be
my
pretty good, I think.
gosh.
So yeah,
Wow.
we've been pretty busy getting that together. And we look at this. I can't believe I hate to keep focusing on that, but I never don't shave and then come on here. Look at this. Look like a meth dealer.
Oh, you
But
know what?
but
It's all good because I didn't pay for the high definition YouTubing. So trust me, it's going to be nice and
nice
blurry.
and smooth, like a Zoom filter.
Here's my producer real quick. This is conversation.
Hey,
Christy,
how
she's
are
going
you?
to be backstage.
Hi. It's nice to meet you. How are you?
I'm doing good. I'm not selling meth. I just look like it today.
Oh,
I'm late. Didn't have time to take a shower or shave or anything.
oh
Oh
man.
my goodness. No, that's not true. You don't look like that at all.
My goal was to do that, so I hope I look something like that anyway.
Com-
So
Conversation with Christy is my producer today, so I want to give her channel a quick shout out. Uh,
cool.
thank you so much, and again, thank you, Scott.
Oh yeah.
I appreciate this. Um, that's just good. So, wow, I was in the middle of an introduction. So, how? Okay, I'll just start off with this question.
Okay.
I have ADHD, and I know that 8.7 million Americans, or 6.1% of the population, do. The last statistics that I saw. Now, I know that spotting body language takes a tremendous amount of focus. Now, and everybody has, you don't have to have ADHD to have your mind wandering at times and things like that. But I was wondering if you had any tips for people that may have issues with keeping focus. Is there any little tricks you do, or is it just something that you learned over time? Because yeah, some of the stuff you guys do, you're paying close attention to the face, but you're
Mhm.
also keeping your peripheral vision on feet when you're doing it live and you're doing in person things.
Mhm.
How do you manage that?
Well, that's if you're into whatever it is, if you're into something that you really like, that's no problem. As you know, it's no problem at all. You can focus right on it. If I have to go in and talk to somebody who's done something they shouldn't have done, and I have to interrogate them, and I can't be, oh hey, I can't. It's a totally different personality type than I am in person. It's theater for one. So
Mhm.
it's a different approach, a different everything. But what I do is what helps me is I meditate. Actually, I get this app called the Headspace app.
Oh,
And so I
nice.
use that. Yeah, oh, listen, it makes all the difference in the world. It's like 10 minutes or something every day. And so
Wow.
that's helped me a lot. I've done that for years. It's helped me a lot. So
Wow. And that, well, thanks for sharing that. That is something that, I, my ADHD ness, or whatever you want to call it, normally I can control it with diet, but with some health issues I have going on, it's causing fatigue, which is
mm,
a cascade failure. And I realize, like, wow, how do some people, normally I have a minor amount and I'm able just to pretty much, I still make stupid mistakes and things like that. But
mhm.
when I have it at this level, it's like a realizing that there are people who operate at this level, and it's been a really real eye opener for me. It's like, wow, how do you people do it? Like, but thanks meditation. Yes,
Yeah. Yeah.
wow, it's amazing to hear one of the pros talk about that.
Yeah, well, it's important. It helps you center yourself, and you can. There's a couple of them on there that I always use, like before I do a TV show or something. If I'm doing, if it's the news or something, like today, I'm doing a couple of news hits today. But
Mm,
those things aren't a problem because you go on, they'll show you something, say, "Oh, here's what you're seeing is this," and that's it. But if you're doing Dr. Phil, there's no telling what he's going to ask you. He doesn't sit down and go, "Here's what here's what I'll," none of that. It's like, what do you think's happening? And the thing that's the weird thing is he knows a lot about that as well, about obviously about behavior, but
mm,
the body language part too. He's educated in that. So then you feel goofy. I feel weird going, well, here's what's happening, and looking him in the eye and telling him what's happening when I know he knows what's happening. And I've told him that, and it's like, it's, that's the worst part of doing his show is like telling him what he already knows, you
mm,
know? So that's tough. But the ADHD thing and meditating, it puts you right in the zone. There's one on there that I use all the time. It's for presentations. It's like 4 minutes long.
mm,
And that just walks you through how to settle down, how to refocus once you start getting off track. So I like
mm.
that a lot. I'm getting lit up from that call I got a minute ago. Sorry, put that on the
Do
floor.
you need me to? I
So,
can go ahead and
oh
mute.
no, we're cool. It's totally. I promise you, it's totally cool.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I I have to say I love the approach that you've taken with the body the behavior panel, and it's one of the things I find you guys discuss some super heavy topics. I
Hmm.
mean, and sometimes it's like you can feel it's so heavy, but I love how you leave little bits of humor in it,
Oh,
and you
thanks.
have little segments of where and it's inspired me when uh, when minor things go wrong, just kind of laugh, and it's like, you know what? Yeah, too. Life can be too much of a downer to take so seriously. Sometimes you need
Yeah.
time to, uh, just to relax and things like that. And as I was discussing with you, I had this time where I had a voice changer. Yeah, it kicked on in the middle of a live, and I
Yeah.
am your
Yeah.
fault. That whole thing. And people are telling me in the chat, your voice is off, your voice is off. I'm off on my notes. I'm just da da da. And finally,
Uh,
somebody came on the screen and said, "Hey, dude," and it's like, you know what? Yeah, all you can do is just laugh
yeah.
sometimes, and you
Yeah.
know,
Just ride it.
yeah, because then the thing is that if you focus on what you did wrong, you're tying up so much of your brain resources, kicking yourself in the rear. And I've known that playing with bands, like uh, there's instances where you know what song you're supposed to play next, and you
Hmm.
can't get the rhythm in your head. And it's like, being a drummer, you can usually get by with, I'll just play time. It's like,
Hmm.
it's easy to spot from anybody else.
Yeah.
But it's like, you do until you get enough of the song in your head. It's like, okay, now my brain knows where to go.
So you're a
So,
drummer.
yes, sir. I,
Oh,
I, I try to be one.
what is your what set do you have?
Right now, I'm having to use a Roland electronic kit. Mainly, I've done a lot of hearing damage, and the
Mm.
hearing aids I use, an acoustic kit overloads the microphones, and
Oh,
you're just playing away. You hear pop, pop, pop. You have music playing, da 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 da. You hit the snare, and da da da, pa, da 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 da. It takes a while
oh,
for the
okay.
music to kick back in. So, electronics, you don't have that real sharp attack and decay. It's more of a mellow, and you can position
Yeah.
the speakers away from you if you're using a really big PA. So
Mm.
yeah, you don't get that. Um, one thing that you guys discuss, and you're kind of noted for it, narcissists and psychopaths. I've had some experience growing up with that in my life, and I find that a lot of the tools that you drop, a lot of your knowledge on those two is just wow, and it's helped me in a big, big way.
Mm, good. Good.
Uh,
Yeah, those are tough to deal with. It's my favorite thing. It's a con and a psychopath. And sometimes, a lot of times, a con will be a psychopath. Those are my two favorite people or types of personality types to interrogate or talk to about things they shouldn't have done. That's I don't know why, but I've always been fascinated with that with somebody when there's just a body running around because the neurological reactions to everything is nothing emotional. It's all neurological. So it's for me, it's fascinating to see that. You know,
wow. Do you have any? Do you have any favorite instances where that may have come up? Not to put you on the spot.
no, I'm trying to nothing where I would go. It's my favorite one or anything.
Mm,
Some of them are
no.
weird. Some of them you'd never know anything was wrong with them or that they were in trouble for doing what they were getting in trouble for. There's what
Wow.
you're supposed to be talking to about. So that's always odd is when you see someone who looks completely normal who's done some horrendous stuff. So
Mm,
that's that's always interesting for me. That's one of
mm,
the parts of it. So because they always try to look so nice and normal, you
mm.
know.
I love.
So
I have to admit, I absolutely loved your story when you were talking about it's an example you use quite a bit where you talk about the psychopath sees a car accident and they see a woman crying
oh
and
yeah,
um, they think they see that event and just think to themselves, I'll get lemon chicken. It's at the point now to where every time you mention, it's like, you know what? I want lemon chicken. That sounds
it's
good
weird,
about
isn't
now.
it? When's the last time you had Chinese food?
Oh man, yeah, that's been a long wow. The only Chinese food, I mean, a small town, the only Chinese food place we've had shut down like a year ago. So
You've ever seen a commercial for Chinese food?
no, have you?
Chinese restaurant?
Not in
I've
a
never
long.
seen one. I've
There
never seen one.
there was one in Tucson that I remember way back when, but I haven't seen her in forever. But you're
Hmm.
into Hattie B's spicy chicken.
Yeah, I like hot chicken. I don't know why. I just love it. I can't get enough of it. It's horrible. I mean, to eat that much chicken, that's fried and got hot stuff on it. But it's not the real hot stuff. It's just regular old hot. They have mild, you know. And the hot's supposed to be pretty hot. It really doesn't bother me, but the one up from that's too hot. And they have the hottest one, which is more you eat that for sport with your friends, I think. I don't think anybody goes and goes, I'll have that extra hot, I think they call it the mother clucking hot. So I got that once. I was like, no, that isn't me. Can't do that. But I do like the regular stuff. Their chicken sandwiches are awesome too,
Mm.
you know. So I really like those.
Do you get much Hattie B's where you're at now, or I mean, because I know you moved.
Yeah,
Uh,
it's I go get it and I freeze it, you
oh,
know,
okay.
and then I put it in the oven. You put it in the oven for 12 minutes each side, you know, and then you're good to go, you know. So
I had to ask that because I remember the one behavior panel where um, Mark recommended that you marry into the family so that you could start your
oh
own.
yeah. 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 But you have to be in the family. They don't let you have one unless you're part of the family, literally related to them. So, you
It's,
know.
let's see here. My,
I'm not a restaurant guy. I couldn't run a restaurant. I couldn't do anything like that, you know. I don't think.
oh, this is interesting. Interesting question from if you're up to.
Yeah.
I got a question here from my other's keeper. Off topic from behavior. How do you feel about Dr. Phil in the troubled teen industry?
I don't know anything about the troubled teen industry. I like him. He's a great guy. He's really funny, awesome. I don't know anything about the troubled teen industry. I don't know don't know what that is.
Hmm.
So,
How do you keep the heavy from affecting you so much? Oh, that's actually, that is a really good
well,
question.
the way I do it's not the way to do it. But it's the only way that works for me. And if let's say you're exposed to something that is really traumatic, you have to go somewhere and there's something that's really traumatic has happened, or you're talking to somebody and they're telling you about all these horrible things that they've done, and you have to act like it's not. In other words, I have a box, and I open the lid of that box, and when I'm finished with that, whatever it is, I put it in that box, and then I slam the lid down. And I don't open the box again until the next time something comes up, and I put that in the box. Now, theoretically, that box is going to blow open one day, but I hope not. It'll get everywhere. There'll be a lot in there. It'll get everywhere. But that's the way I do it. And I know it's not what you're supposed to do, but that's the way I do it. I just put it in the box, and and don't bring it home, and don't think about it again. The only time I ever really talk about that stuff outside of that is like on the behavior panel, or when somebody asks questions about it, then I'll talk about it to teach somebody something, but that's it.
Huge fan. And I believe that, here we go. This was a question. I have bipolar and ADHD. Would my body language be typical?
Well, when you're dealing with both of those, it depends on what's happening. If you have ADHD, like I do, like somebody else I know does, then you would have you'll do things like I do. I'll start talking about something, I'll think of a story and start telling that story. Then I'll come back to what I was talking about. But I can usually weave whatever I'm talking about into that story, So you may do things like that as well. And as far as being bipolar and the body language that comes with that, everybody's different. It affects everybody a little differently. You have the specific behaviors you see with that, or specific cues you'll see in the personality itself with someone, their reactions to things and that type of thing. But as far as body language goes, neurologically, we're all, pretty much the same. So it would be, if someone's introduced in that situation, if you find it threatening, you may not. If you have, bipolar disorder, you may see it from a different angle. So you may react to it differently, but you're still reacting to it as your brain sees it, in other words. So I hope that helps or explains it.
There's one thing I've been meaning to ask you forever. How did you go from the music industry, to body language? I could see how it would be helpful. Of course, body language is helpful anywhere, but to go from producing to, the scale of running a body language training program, being involved in Fortune 500 companies, and
Mm-hmm.
having to confront people who have been accused of stealing and stuff from companies. It doesn't seem to necessarily fall. I can see if you were like in law enforcement, like, yeah, I'm gonna go into this now. But
Yeah, no, it's they sort of ran together in parallel. And when I was a producer, I never, and nobody ever, I never hid it from anyone. If anybody said, "Dude, I heard you put so and so in prison, or this happened, or that happened, or you interrogated so and so," I would say, "Yeah, I did that." It was nothing I hid, and I didn't hide the music business from the interrogation world or anything. But it's something I got good at when I was young. So I, but I was doing the music business, which was sort of, there's not a lot of money in interrogation and body language and all that. So my backup was the music business, and it just so happened it did really well. Or I ended up luckiest guy in the world. I ended up doing, good in that, So it's sort of funded my want to be into body language, because back when I was young, there's no way you could make enough money to live off of that. You could do speaking gigs, but I didn't have a training thing together really, so I was cobbling that together as I went along. And then when the music business, I saw it coming where they're going to start giving music away, so you wouldn't be able to sell albums, there's nothing to buy, and I went around and I talked to all the record labels, and I said, and they would call me up and say, "You've been talking this stuff about records going away. What are you, and CDs? What are you talking about?" And I said, "Here's what's coming." And what we have now would explain, because it was obvious what was coming. Anybody into that, as we can see things coming now. I said, "Here's what's going to happen." So I'm not going to do a record for this much or that much. I'm not going to do this because you're not going to be able to sell that. They're going to be giving it away. So in the long term, 20 years from now, if I've got a deal where I'm making, points from sales, I don't want points from sales. No. And so I'd map out what kind of deal I wanted, and they would get all mad. And then about 2 years went by, then they all called me, and I'm talking almost every head of every label in Nashville. They're like, "What's now?" I remember you were talking about what was going to happen because it was already happening. Now, what's going to happen next? And I was like, "Dude, I told you 2 years ago." I would tell them oh, not that I was being mean, but I was a little, you know, they weren't listening to me. And I wasn't there for me to do it. I was saying, "Here's what's going to happen," when they would ask me. Here's what's
Mm.
going to happen next. And now they're like, what's going to happen next? And I was like, I already told you, we're there. It's too late. You can't do anything. You'll make the companies will make the deals with the streaming services, and then there you'll be. There will be, and people like me who are songwriters and producers, and I'm just a writer by default.
Wow.
If I was working on a record, we'd write something, and I would have something we put together, or add to it, um, or write one in the studio or something if we need one. So I'm not a big songwriter, but I did get some pretty good hits though. But outside of that, when you do when you're in one business or two businesses at the same time, and you really like one, it's tough to stay in the other one. So
Mm.
when the sales stopped and I got out before they stopped, I was like, okay, I'm going to retire. I'm getting out of this in 2011, I think.
Mm.
Yeah, that's when I quit. I quit record producing totally. But at the same time, I already had speaking gigs. I already was doing training for years, all that. So it was no problem. It
Mm.
wasn't like changing from one to the other. It was just like moving one away from that and just focusing on the other one.
Wow.
So, which is what I really wanted to do,
Mm.
and then having been, successful in the music business has allowed me to afford to do that.
Mm.
So they're really lucky.
Where do you find? I realize the music industry. I mean, even if you're a studio musician, you're still well, yeah. Even a studio musician, there's still the thought of I'm going to have to be performing in front of a lot of people. But one of the things I noticed, playing a kit was I kind of have a space behind
Hmm.
somebody. And I've always played small venues, so it was never anything big. But to be a guitar player, you're out there with a little piece of wood and some strings
Hmm.
between you and all those people, and then speaking gigs.
Yeah.
Being on camera is one thing where you're still kind of disconnected somewhat. How hard was it for you to get the confidence to speak? Because you have some the last event you had in Vegas, that was a
Hmm.
pretty big
Yeah.
event. How do
Yeah,
you?
that was pretty big. Well, I'm not a performer, so in music, all I ever wanted to do is be a session guy. That's all I ever studied. That's all I ever wanted to do. I didn't want to go out and be famous or anything. And I would change my look as to whatever the music was I wanted to be a part of.
Mm,
Like when I went to Berkeley College of Music in Boston, I had long hair and two earrings and the whole thing because I wanted to do those. I wanted to be the metal guy. I was the first like heavy metal guy at Berkeley. Although I wasn't just heavy metal, I played grew up in bluegrass, you know.
mm,
So it I became like the call guy for a lot of those things in the 80s when when you heard um, big guitars on dance tunes in the 80s and 90s, or like big metal guitars on somebody's dance tune or their pop song. I was the call guy for that. I did, I hate to say most of them, but I did most of those that you heard back then.
mm,
Which is what I really want to do is be a session guy. So I
mm,
did play guitar and drums, and then from doing that, then I just moved into producing because it was so easy. Once you're around, when you're in the studio a lot, you don't you understand. I got really lucky early on by some guys that I'd lived with, who
mm,
they would put together bands like New Edition, New Kids on the Block, and I would happen to be there for part of that,
mm,
for that. So and they would teach me how to produce, what you do, song arrangement, how you do all those kind of things. My dad was a musician. He was a doctor, but he was a musician as well, and he was a session guy in Nashville when he was going
wow.
to Vanderbilt. So he taught me a lot too growing up. That's where I actually learned how to play guitar and drums, was from
Mm,
him.
wow.
And I have dyslexia and I can't read music. So
Mm,
that sort of separated me from being the regular Nashville session guy where you go in and you read charts and do that because I can't do that. Even at Berkeley, I had real problems because you got to be able to read music there. So I, I would just watch somebody play it. I'd have whoever it was play it when I was a little kid, I had all kinds of guitar teachers. Went through, had a lot of them because I was really into it. And my dad was, my parents were involved and were into me doing that, into learning. So this one guy's name is Jim Whaley, and he was one of my teachers. And he was one when I was in, I guess it was the 8th or 9th grade by now. That started when I was a little kid. And I'd just been watching somebody play it. Then I would learn, and I would remember how it went. And then I would just replay that and pretend like I was learning it and practicing it, right? So one day I went in and he said, okay, we're going to learn this, So I said, okay, we'll play it. And let me see here what it sounds like. So he played it. And he said, well, let's, we talked a while. Then he said, okay, now you play it. And he had the music up. And I played it, note for note, like he just played it, And he said, so is that what you read on the paper? And I said, yeah. He said, well, that's pretty good. I said, yeah, well, and it was weird because he'd been teaching me for years. And he said, well, that's interesting. That's not the song that I played you. And I said, well, I'm sure I don't know what you're talking about. What do you mean? Of course, and he said, you can't read music, can you? I said, of course. Yeah, I fussed with him. I said, yeah, I can. And of course, all you had to do was say, okay, well, read that. Let's see what happens. And I had to say, I really can't. I can't because dyslexia, everybody thinks you hear everybody say, I'm dyslexic. I can't. When you really have it, man, it's the worst. It sucks because you can't read right. It takes forever, until those fonts came out, the dyslexic font, which changed my life. I absolutely love it. And you can get that for your browser. If you have Chrome, you can get it's called Open Dyslexic. You can have that put on your browser, so everything that's on there is in that font. And all my Kindles have that on there as well, that font, so I can read as much as I want. But see how ADHD works? We're talking about something completely different than what you asked me. And I'm just like scooting right along, but they all connect to me.
Yeah.
That all makes sense to me. But I see what you're saying.
Well, that is so interesting. I never gave the slightest thought to how dyslexia would work with somebody reading music. And you keep thinking, oh, it's just going to be, typed words and things like, reading words on a page. But yeah, the symbology in music, for some reason, I just kind of thought it's because it's symbology, they're going to be immune from that. But wow. Yeah, and I can see it. I can see it being worse now you talk about it.
Oh, yeah. I don't have it like, so Mark Bowden has a different style than I have. He can't even drive. They won't let that guy drive. Won't give him a driver's license. His is so bad. And as horrible as that is. And his is just the worst.
Man.
He can read and stuff. Oh, that works fairly well for him. But for me, I don't have any problems like he has, like driving or anything like that. I'm always lost, but now we have GPS, so that doesn't bother me. But
I honestly thought you were almost joking about him not being able to. But wow,
no.
That is.
Yeah, he can't drive. They don't let him drive.
I just thought he was like highfalutin status, and then I don't want to drive, I know. Oh my gosh. Wow. Man.
So
one of the questions that we have in the chat, what challenges do you find most interesting in working with cons and psychopaths? What day join those two types of people? Oh, well, I guess the question would be, what challenges does he find most interesting in working with cons and psychopaths?
Is figuring out the puzzle, because when you deal with a con, they've conned somebody out of something, or they work at a bank and they've worked some deal out where they make a bunch of money, or they were dealing with a startup or a company. But you have to figure out this puzzle they put together, because usually those people are pretty smart. They can say, okay, I want this over here. I don't want to work for it. I don't want to do anything good for it. So I'm going to figure out how to do it sneakily, or do it in a bad way, or talk them into giving it to me. So it's the great part for me is figuring that puzzle out, what they've done, and then not telling them that exactly what they did, but making them tell them themselves as you ask questions around that. And we call it boxing the person in. Once they start answering questions, and once they give you something specific, you can ask a question over here and it scoots them this way a little bit. And you keep scooting them this way and this way till you get them in the corner and they can't get out. So they're boxed into the corner, and they either have to say, oh, okay, I did it. Or you just tell them there's no, you show that there's this is part of the evidence now that they did what they were accused of doing. And with psychopaths, I love that because it's one of those situations where you never know what's gonna come out of their mouths. You do, but once you start pinning them in, once you start getting them boxed in, their reactions to those, seeing how their brains work as you talk to them and deal with them, get them to tell you things. It's just and then they'll just swing for the fences sometimes, just tell us a big blatant lie or whatever. Then you get that worked out, so they have to admit that that wasn't true. It's just one thing after another with them where it's just you get to use mentally, you get to go through a lot. So you get to use your brain, your full brain. You get to use, creativity. You get to use the analytical side. You get to use the just everything to work out the puzzle that you're dealing with. How do I get that person to tell me what they've done? Especially the psychopaths and cons. I'd have to flip a coin between who I'd rather talk to, because quite often psychopaths or cons are psychopaths. But but those back to the question. See, ADHD is the challenge is the puzzle, but that's the part I like the most about it. I think is figuring out how to get them to tell me what they did, what the best approach is. Once you get in there and figuring out what they actually did, because a lot of times nobody knows how they did it or how they talk somebody into it, but you can get them to tell you, if you're patient with them.
That is so interesting, fascinating stuff.
So,
Man, I could listen to you talk all day. Oh, and I wanted to thank you so much for starting your channel with your informal talks of
oh yeah,
talking about life's event. Man, that is so relaxing. Just kind of oh yeah, you talk about all sorts of things, from funny things that have happened, and the commode incident. I absolutely love your still of Mark singing his gospel favorites.
oh yeah, yeah. Oh, that's so horrible. I do that to them all the time when I'm editing that show. The behavior panel. You'll stop somewhere. There's your editing, and somebody will just have the weirdest look on their face. So I always grab them and send them to them. So, and then I've got a big collection that if any of those guys ever mess with me, they're done, because I can just crank out memes for the next 3 years and not have to do anything else, because they're just it's so hardcore, man. Some of them aren't some of them are graphic because of the look on their face, but it's just that's I actually love doing that, finding those, and I send them with me too. If I get one that's really bad at me, I'll send it to them. So it's not one-sided at all. It's all of us.
Are you the biggest prankster on the behavior panel?
Well, I wouldn't say prankster, just I like funny. And so if it's something that I can see would be funny, I may set it up a little bit, or may ask Mark a question so he'll get into it, then I'll zing him with something. But Chase is pretty fun. Well, Mark's funny, Chase is funny. And so and Greg's a great guy, but he likes funny. He likes to laugh more than he likes to be funny. So, but Mark collects. He and I have one of the things we bonded over where I collect old comedians' autographs. Like the Three Stooges and the Marx Brothers and all the old school comedians. I collect those. I have since I was a kid. And Mark collects memorabilia from comedy, from funny movies. So he has a bunch of stuff from old funny comedies. So we bonded on that. We both really like humor, but Chase is pretty funny too. Don't get me wrong. He's funny. Like the other day we had a situation where Greg was going to be out of town, and he couldn't do the show with us. And every time we do that happens. They just do it from the hotel, or I'll do it. Someone else will do it from the hotel where we are. But this was a situation where he wasn't going to be able to. And it was the debate was coming out, or had just come out that day. And Greg's like, can't do it. So what we decided to do was we would just record his answers like he was on the show, and I would just edit it in. And then he would sit there for 5 minutes and pretend like he was listening, right? So we could just put it in the show. So when one of us were talking, we could just look at that, he would just be up there going, like that. So what would happen is when during that, when I would play Greg's part and we had to sit there, Chase would start doing this. He'd start going, and he'd just with the blank face, he'd go, and just start making, and then start talking like a ventriloquist, like this. You start talking, his mouth wouldn't move, so nobody can see it moving. You can a little bit, and just saying the most graphic stuff you can possibly imagine. So I couldn't help it. So I start laughing. Everybody's like, "Why is Scott so disrespectful?" Scott laughs on the thing. It's so disrespectful to Greg. And then somebody else is like, "Why is Greg on a loop?" Some people have figured his part out, and they're seeing me laughing. So it ended up being kind of a mess. But we got our points across. But it was, but I don't consider myself a prankster. I would never do that. I'm not one of those guys, but I just like funny, so something's funny. I like to talk about it or make it happen,
And I do know that Chase does have a tendency to do voices, and I mean,
yeah.
him doing Mark Bowden was always kind of funny. Oh, let's see. We got a question here. Where do you? It's interesting. I would have never thought to ask him that. Where do you find inspirations for your songs, or when you modify songs? Did you start writing other things before you started with songs?
Oh, that kind of thing. See, once I got out of the music business, I'm hands off with all that. I don't do that anymore. But in the old days, it would be, let's say I'm working with a comedian, Jeff Foxworthy, for example. And Warner Brothers came to me and they said, "Look, we got this comedian and he sold 10,000 units and we want to sell 20,000 by Christmas." And I said, "So what do you think?" So what do you think we ought to do? And I said, "Well, we could do something my thing was always, let's do something nobody's done before." So I said, what I'll do is I can take his live stuff, his comedy stuff, and I'll build a track around it. And I'll use the rule of threes in comedy, so you have a verse, a chorus, and you have a pre-chorus and things like that. And his thing, and his chorus, of course, his hook was going to be, "You might be a redneck if," and then he would say what it was going to be. So the little pre-chorus was, "You might be a redneck if," or he'd say what it is, and then he would say, "You might be a redneck," right? I said, "I'll do that. Let me, I'll go ahead." And they're like, "Nah, I don't. I said, "I'm telling you, man, if we do this, we'll sell 30,000 by Christmas. I'm telling you, I really think this will work." And sure enough, to make a long story short, I finally talked them into letting me do it. Okay. And we sold, I think, 3 million of those things altogether.
Wow.
And they were like, "Oh my Lord, let's do another one." I was like, "Well, I've got 2 already done. So let's go ahead." And that's when I was a producer for Warner Brothers. So I've got 2 done. Let's try these. And so we did. We ended up doing a whole album of those things. And then, what's his name? The other guy, who's your, "Here's Your Sign," Bill Engvall.
Yeah.
So Bill called. He said, "Can we do one on me?" I was like, "Yeah, man, we'll do one on you." So he said, "My thing is, here's your sign." I said, "I got you." So for the writing part of it, then I called a buddy of mine and said, "Hey, let's Ronnie Scaife, who written some really huge, really, really big country songs." And I said, "I got some comedy stuff, man. Do you want to write this with me? It's for Bill Engvall." I think I got Travis Tritt to sing it. So I called and said, "Hey man, I got this track. You want to sing?" He goes, "Yeah, I'll do it. I'll do it." So Ronnie Scaife and I wrote this song I wrote "Here's Your Sign," and then Ronnie and I wrote another one on that same album. Oh, I can't remember the name of it because we just used to just those things out just every 5 minutes. We go, "Okay, do one of those," and there you have another one. But so he and I wrote one that Travis Tritt sang. But anyway, so it was like, as a writer, I just happened to be there and they go, "What about this?" And I go, "Okay." And so I would study this guy named Mutt Lange. He was my favorite producer. And when I became a producer, that was the guy I was mimicking. And I was trying to be like him, And so I would use his song form in these, whatever it was I was supposed to write. If it was something for Alan Jackson, if it was something for the Beach Boys, or something, whatever it was. And I would just use that song form and write stuff around that, which is really easy once you understand song form and how it works. And I studied that at Berkeley as well when I was in Boston. So putting those together, I never sat down and talked about my feelings. I'm not that guy. I couldn't do that. So everything was, it was either about, finding girls or dancing or it was comedy, something like that. Or it was something that was funk. If I did something with Bootsy Collins, let's say, then we always did something that was just funky, and whatever came out of his mouth was what it was about, but we'd write the music part and he would write the lyrics part. So, or adds to something that I had already done. So that's how that worked.
That's so interesting. I'm still in awe knowing that you had to go through Berkeley.
Oh,
I
yeah.
mean, with that shows a lot of ingenuity though, going through Berkeley without being able to read music. I mean, you hear Eddie Van Halen talked about him having a fake music reading with the instructor,
Mhm.
but that's a completely different thing from something at the level of Berkeley. I mean,
Yeah.
holy
Well,
hell!
Berkeley was great because at the time, Boston was a music town, had its own scene happening there.
Mm,
There was a band called Till Tuesday, and they'd gotten their deal. The Cars lived there, and their
mm.
studio was just down the street from our studio. We had Mission Control, and they had what was the Cars studio name? I can't remember what the name of their studio was. Uh, I can't remember, but it was so they had their own, and so there was the whole place was musicians. There was another band called Extreme. There was a band called The Dream, and then somebody bought the name from them, or somebody else had said we've already used that name in England, so the Dream. They said okay, so they became X Dream, which became Extreme, right? And those guys lived a couple buildings down from us, right? And
Oh
so what
wow!
we do, and the guys from In Living Color or Living Color, this band called Living Color,
Yeah.
and the drummer lived downstairs from us because he went to Berkeley too. And the thing is, all these people that became famous and big in the 80s and 90s, we all went to school with a lot of them, But what we do is for guitar players in these different bands, and these guys a lot of them are really famous now. And what we do is we put our amps up in the windows, and then we'd have these guitar battles across Peterborough Street, right there in Boston. And we lived at 24 Peterborough Street. And we put our amps up in the window, and so the guys from Extreme would fight us. They'd play, Nuno would play something, and I'd play something back, and he'd play something. The guy across the street would play something. We'd have these battles going on until the cops showed up. And so we'd know when they were coming because we could see them coming all the way down the street, and we just pull our stuff in. We got in trouble a couple of times, but it's just you guys need to stop, settle down, quit horsing around. This is it's disturbing the peace and all that. But nobody ever got arrested because we were kids, in our late teens. So
Shannon Smith also loves your backyard talking to the squirrels and
oh, I have a rabbit now. There's a little baby rabbit that's been coming around. So and now what happened was I don't know where its mother went, because I don't know where this little rabbit came from. It lives in these bushes there that you can actually see in the episode I did where I did it outside and right on the back porch. And now this little rabbit has been watching the squirrels because they all come up and start taking peanuts, and you can just feed them. And the rabbit thought, well, that's how you do it, as a baby. So this little rabbit comes up too. It's bizarre how it doesn't think it's a squirrel or anything like that, but it does the same behaviors as far as when it sees me come outside, it starts coming over too, but it won't go near anybody else. It won't let anybody else get near it, So I guess I don't think it knows me, but maybe it does. I don't know. But anyway, so along with that question, my ADHD answer with that is we have a rabbit too. So
the
there's that.
nearly famous Aaron Chase, who you probably know from
Oh
recognizing
yeah, I know Aaron.
the chats. Yes, Scott, did you write the song "Play That Funky Music"?
No, I didn't write that, but I did like this metal version of it. This like a metal dance electronic, this hardcore thing in Boston when we had our studio there. They were like, my buddies were like, yeah, just use the B room anytime you want. So I had to go in there and put these tracks together, and I got like the big Boston Music Award for this single I did. I put out. I know it only worked in Boston, because it's a local thing. But no, I didn't write that. So
I again, I keep finding my own self-indulgence or needing to feel my self-indulgence coming up. Neil Peart, what's your opinion?
I really thought he was awesome. He was. I didn't know him well at all.
Mm,
I just met him a few times, but really great guy, just a sweetheart, man. And he wasn't into all the thing I realized first was that he wasn't into the whole, famous, and he never had that attitude at all. I mean, when
mm,
I saw him, and I saw him later on, I didn't see him when they were, when I was in high school, they were like, oh my God, it's Rush. But, it was in the 80s or whatever when I met him a few times, and just seemed like the sweetest guy in the world, And as
mm.
far as the drummer goes, that's mighty hard to beat is him. Now there's a drummer on, speaking of drums, have you seen that guy who's like the Eddie Van Halen of drums? I can't remember his name. It's Estepario
Yes.
something.
Yeah.
Gosh, man, I've never seen anything like that before. I've never seen anything like that before.
Oh my
You know,
gosh. Yeah. It's like
yeah, that
it's
guy's
one of those
incredible, man.
you see him or I see him, it's like, oh man, I give up. I quit, you know.
Yeah, but that's you hear, oh, so and so's a freak of nature. This guy, he really is. There's never been anybody like this guy before, ever,
Yeah.
ever. Estepario, I can't spell it. I can't
Yeah.
pronounce his last name, but man, he's really he's the greatest when it comes to that. Uh, so many different time signatures and everything that he can do. I don't know, man. I think that guy's awesome. What kind of bird is that back there?
Well, that's a cockatiel. He feels a need to constantly
Get
interject.
him. Let's get a look at him.
Oh no, he's in a cage. I'd have to
Oh,
move the cam and everything.
what'd you name him?
um oh man, my wife would kick my butt right about now.
No, that's okay. I get it. Believe me.
um this question came up earlier. Do you find that psychopaths would admit they're wrong?
It's really tough for them, depending on what the situation is, because they'll never admit they're wrong. Like, oh, you know what, I was wrong. None of that. But if it's something that will help them, they would. Oh,
Hmm.
I didn't mean to do that. Geez, I meant this, because they've got a goal in mind.
Oh.
So when the narcissist, the hardcore clinical narcissist has a problem with that as well. But it's tough to get them to say that they were wrong. So a lot of times the best thing you can ask a narcissist is, what do you think your biggest mistake was you ever made? And you can watch them try to think through that. I mean, they're not going to go back like that, but it's a real problem for them. But with psychopaths, I mean, if it's something that'll help them, yeah, they won't have a problem saying that. But normally in real life, since they're the highest form of narcissist there is, then they won't admit it. They won't just come out and say, you know what, I was wrong about that, and then go on about doing something. They'll never do that. So, that helps.
Do you find narcissistic psychopaths, Scanik Alexander, do you find that narcissistic psychopaths are able to successfully mask their tells because they really believe lies?
Not necessarily. I mean, they remember, it's psychopaths. One of the things that fascinates me the most is you can't stress them. They don't feel stress. So it's hard to see the correct body language on them when something happens because they don't get stressed. And a lot of times they're hard to surprise as well. I've
Mm.
realized over the years. So since they don't feel stress, then you don't see little stress things like, adapters. They don't start doing things where they chew on their face, or they'll pull on their face or rub their hands together or something. So there's really not a lot to mask there, not a lot to hide, So
My internet connection just burnt, but hopefully everything's recovered.
hmm.
Um, let's see here. Let me try this real quick. There we go. Okay, yeah, you were just okay. You're frozen for me, but as long as you're not frozen for everybody else.
Am I still frozen?
No, you just. I think you're just frozen for me. Let me try this again. Yeah, but I mean, I can see you moving on the sub screen. So
Oh, okay.
let's see. You're both good. Okay.
Okay, good.
So I
Look at this.
got a frozen. It kind of reminds me of the episode where you.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Wow,
Wow.
look at this. I can't believe how I haven't shaved. Look at this. God, it looks horrible.
Oh no.
Well, and my voice is about shot too. We've been training all morning, so that's why I'm talking like this. Sorry about that. So
Oh, oh my gosh. Yeah. Of course, yeah. You're training body language membership and true crime workshop. You go into the liar's loop, of course. What all's needed to go into a lie, and I just found that fascinating. One of the expressions I keep noticing you keep saying everything's as it should be, and what's going to happen next.
yeah. Well, my favorite thing is what's going to happen next. That's why that is probably the bottom line of what I'm interested in human behavior. What's that person going to do next? Are they going to shoot? Are they going to run? Are they going to lie about something? When they lie, that's my favorite thing. And when I say everything is as it should be, because when a person's normal and they're not showing any stress cues, then everything is as it should be. So there's nothing to worry about at that point, or it
Mm,
doesn't look like there is, depending on what you're dealing with there, from a
mhm.
normal person to a psychopath, or whatever you're dealing with. So that's why I always say that, and that's why Chase always messes with me about it, because I didn't realize I said so many of the same things over and over, but I've been collecting his. So get ready. I'm ready for it. Yeah. So
Let's see here. Rebecca asks, has being able to read people interfere or complicated your life in any way? Maybe relationships over children. Wow.
well, I don't think I have any kids, so it didn't do anything. So not that, but in relationships, like say, with my wife, she's a private investigator. She's a PI, and she understands a lot of behavior as well. She's versed in human behavior. So that and family members and things, like nobody cares, and they're like, so I'm just the fat kid who used to sit around and play guitar all the time and drums and make everybody mad for being too loud. So no, in our family, nobody cares or looks at it. They go, oh, I saw you on the news, or I saw you on Dr. Phil, I saw you on whatever it was. Oh, okay, great. But in our immediate family, it never meant anything at all. Nobody ever said, well, I know you can tell by none of that at all. My first wife, because I got divorced. She had a problem with it. She didn't like cops.
Mm,
It's like, I'm not a cop, but all my friends were, and
mm,
she didn't like that. She just, I don't know why she didn't like them. And it was something I wasn't aware of, but slowly, I became aware of, like, what's going on? Why don't you? Well, and it would start like that. Anyway, I'm going off on a tangent there.
no, I love it. Oh wow. How did you get? Okay, now, I mean, I could see you and Mark because of the of different aspects of you kind of your personalities, and you and Chase. But I must admit, you and Greg, um, how did you two get together? I mean, you guys just seem you're not polar opposites necessarily. I mean, of course,
No.
yeah, body language, is a common thing. But how did you get involved with him?
Well, I've known Greg a long time, and he and I are, we're really tight. Tighter than me and Mark and me and Chase.
Mm.
So we're very close, and we're partners. So not like I'm not like not like partners, but and let's say business partners. That's what boy, that came off weird. I didn't know that Scotty. So no, but we're business partners, and so that's how we met. I'd read his books, and um, we'd become friends through that. But before I met him, I was doing a TED talk, right, or
Mm.
TEDx talk, because somebody had dropped out of TEDx, and a friend of mine said, "Dude, you could talk about body thing. Will you do a thing for TED?" I said, "Sure. When is it?" They said, "Tomorrow, or day after tomorrow." And I was like, "What do you mean day after tomorrow? I can't put something together." Like, well, you can do it if you want to. So I just did one of my quick things, got on my soapbox about uh, bad body language, what everybody thinks absolutes. So there's a thing I put together called Body Language Frankenstein. And it was about how everybody, you see this and you do put all these things together, and it just, you've created this Frankenstein of body language um, that has nothing to do with anything. And I
Mm.
heard Greg Hartley in a book of his, he said, if you don't do whatever it is, you'll create a body language, a Frankenstein's, but somehow he worded it wasn't body language Frankenstein. It was more like Frankenstein of body language or something like that. Frankenstein's monster of body language. So I used that for my title. I said, well, I better call him and let him know what I'm doing, make sure that's cool with him, because it's tomorrow. Because I did it the day before, or I'd put it together the day before, and I thought, well, I better get a hold of him. So I emailed him and said, hey, why don't you let's talk. I got something I need to tell you about. And so I hadn't met him before, never talked to him before, and the reply was just in the subject. So I'll call tomorrow at 12. And I was like, oh shit. So he called, and just the nicest guy in the world. We've been great friends ever since then, you know. So that was, gosh, 15 years ago, something like that.
Wow.
15, yeah.
Okay. Yeah. That
Yeah.
was the thing. I must admit, when I started doing can't remember which one I started first. I think it was Body Language True Crime Workshop. I must admit, I was really intimidated, like by
Hmm.
Greg, because I mean, and
Yeah.
the pig sticker hanging, behind him, like,
Yeah.
and then the whole hood thing, and you know, oh my gosh! But he really is incredibly patient, and
Hmm.
he is really a nice guy, and
Yeah.
that was. Yeah, great guy to learn from. Because I
Hmm.
know I'm not the easiest person in the world to teach, and I keep asking him these questions, and he's like, "Okay, no, these are great questions, man. I actually knew I was beating myself up. Oh my
Hmm.
gosh, I'm afraid to ask you." But yeah, just absolutely great and
Yeah.
understanding guy.
Oh
I'm
yeah, he's very patient. Yeah,
Yeah,
really patient.
yeah. Let's see if we got. I must admit, I was also really tempted to introduce you the same way Spidey did that one
Oh
where he discussed UFOs. This is Scott Rouse. He wrote this book, and yeah, he's better looking and smarter than James.
yeah, he's been texting me all morning. I don't know what he wants, so I got to get back to him. I don't check my text when I'm working, so when I got back in, I was like, so I got to see what's up with him,
Scott, why do you call psychopaths it?
because there's nobody in there and they kill people. And the ones I talk about and call them it are those people who are serial killers and have killed
Oh.
several people, a child or children or
Mm.
somebody's dad, brother, sister, wife, daughter, whatever. So that's why they're it. There's nobody in there running. It's just a body running around. So I have no respect for them and I call them it. And I'll do that every time that they kill someone. They're an it to me. They don't exist. And some people that's going to upset. I can't. They're humans. No, they're not. It's a human body. But there's nobody in there. So and I'll fuss with you about it all day long and there's no way you can make me have any respect for them whatsoever. Not even a little bit. Because as soon as you run into one of those things and you talk to it and you say, "Holy smokes, they actually did that. This isn't TV. This isn't something made up." That guy there with those hands did that with a golf pencil or whatever it was he did it with or she did it with, then you'll have no respect for him whatsoever either. So, gosh, I just went off. So, no, I don't like them. I don't respect them at all. Have no respect for them. I don't give a shit if they are humans. They're not. They're animals. So, gosh, I'm gonna have some more coffee. I'm too tired to be talking about that.
I still want to know about Bootsy. Is he as wild as he seems?
That is probably the sweetest guy in the whole wide world. I'm not kidding you. There's a couple of really sweet people I've met in my life, and he's one of them.
Mhm.
Just the nicest, just wonderful, just positive. No matter what you say or do, it's like, yeah, he's into it. The first time I met him, it was in Memphis. Because we were doing, he and I were actually doing a record together by mail, and it was back when these things called ADATs. It was digital recording. Remember ADATs?
Mm.
On these big VHS things, you could record digital, stuff on them. And so I had a bunch of them, and he had a bunch of them, right? So I would do whatever the tracks were, and I'd take them out of there, and then send them to him, and then he'd play on them, and then send them back to me, and I'd add stuff and send them back to him. And so just by FedEx, we were making a record, right? This album. But I'd never met him in person. We talked on the phone, that kind of thing. So he calls up and he says, "Hey, I'm going to be in Memphis. Why don't you come down?" I said, "Okay, I'll be there." Right. So I go down to see him. And I thought, though, because, I've been in this guy since there's a guy named Roger Troutman who's in
Mm.
this band called Zap. Right. And he knew Bootsy as well. And so those guys every day in high school, I would write them both a letter every day and send it to them. That's how into them I was. I'd write them a letter. Here's what I'm doing today. Here's what I think. And this album, when you did this, and I just send these. It was fan letters basically. Never got one back, and Bootsy never saw one of them. So I don't know where they were going. But so I'd write them every day. Right. So when I met Bootsy, before I met him, I thought this guy's going to be, man, it's going to be sitting up in the corner, and I have to go and say, "Hey, man, come down and stuff." But when I went in, he was like, "Hey," hugged me real big. "Hey, what's happening?" And on my Instagram thing, you can see there's a video of he and I talking because I hadn't seen him in a few years in person, and it was really fun seeing him after a while. So if you want to go see what he's like, he's exactly like he is in that thing. Scott Rouse 3 on Instagram. Go look at that and scroll down through there. You'll see me and Boots. You see a couple of pictures of us first, but there's a video in there. of he and I talking and just talking, you know. So I hadn't seen him in a while, so it was at that point it's good to see him again, you know.
Mm.
So, but yeah, he's a great guy. He's not crazy or wild or wacky or anything. He's really smart, you know. And Patty, his wife, she's now. Don't get me wrong, but I think she's the one driving. I think she's the one that takes care of all the hard stuff. You know, he's the musician and she's the one that does the business stuff. So I think that's what's happened there. She takes care of the you know, like a lot of us, you know, have something happen and your wife will do the hard stuff, you know, the analytical stuff. I think that's what Patty does, and she's awesome too. She's as sweet as she can be. So yeah, he's awesome. He's
We got
great.
time for one more question here. Body Illusion asks, does the fear ever want to take over when you're in a room with the psychopath? Hmm.
Oh, does the fear want to take over? No,
Yeah.
not fear, but my fear in a situation like that is I'll do something to them. Not that I would be big and violent enough to do anything, but but I would get mad and do something, and they'd have to let them go because I had, in other words, broken the rules that I shouldn't do, and I have to let that person go. That's my only fear in things like that. Somebody will say something, pop off about something they've done to somebody to and I just would get so mad I wouldn't be able to stand it. That's the hardest part of talking to those things is keeping your head together. For me, anyway. Some
Mhm.
people have a problem with it.
So
You know.
you do work with police departments as well.
Well, I'm a consultant.
Okay. I mean, I knew, of course, the business end, but I never knew that. I mean, I knew Greg, of course, worked with police departments, but wow. Okay.
Oh yeah, no, yeah, Greg and I do. You
Okay.
know, yeah.
Wow.
So
Well, so you got a new channel coming up, or a new show. You know, that, of course, you're filming and producing and
mhm.
all that. Where can people find that?
Well, it's going to come out. We think now it's going to. We thought it was going to come out in April. Like, yeah, they're like, yeah, we think it's going to be April. We think it's going to be April. Now, when April rolled around, we're like, well, when's it going to happen? Well, no, we've had to move it back, and we'd already told everybody. Like, no, you don't do that. We'll tell you what it is. Don't be out telling it like that. We're like, whoops, here's what we did. And you're like, well, there you go. It's not ready yet.
Hmm.
So it should be out. I'm hoping now
Hmm.
it's going to be out in what is this? July. Should be the end of August, first part of September. You know, in reality, that's when it should be out. Even though we thought it was going to be out, we're like, guess what? Here we're going to have a show coming out in like 2 weeks. And they're like, no, man, don't be doing that. No, because we don't know anything about TV. You know, what do we know? And we thought, okay, well, here we go. It's going to be 2 weeks. You know, so but no, but yeah, it'll be. And what you do is there's a thing. It's on the Merritt Street Media um, channel or network. So if you have TV, look up Merritt Street Media. It should be on there. It's on pretty much I think every cable system. Some don't have it. I don't think. Um, oh, what's the famous one? They don't have it. Um, but it's on. If you have a what's the TV they're on? If you get some kind of TV, it's on that automatically. But you can get the app, and I like the app a lot because I can put on my iPad and watch it whatever's coming out on that. And it's really good quality is the thing. I thought, well, the app's not gonna be, but it's really high end stuff. And they're not. Dr. Phil's not messing around with that. You know, it's real.
What
It's
was
real.
what was the name of the app again?
Merritt Street Media.
Oh, okay. So it's still the same name. Okay.
Mhm.
Okay. Yeah. Because, like, of course, I haven't used television in forever, but
Yeah,
I
I
have
don't
web
use TV
access.
either. Yeah. So I couldn't tell you one TV show on now. Remember that was the thing was TV. Now I don't know what's on. You know, if it's not
Yeah.
on YouTube, I probably don't see it. Or what is it? My wife, Netflix and Hulu and all those things. We have all that, but I don't even watch that. You
Yeah.
know,
And of course, you had the old days of television back when you were in school. If you stayed home, or if you stayed home sick from school, the only thing was really on television was Gilligan's Island. A
yeah, man.
bunch of
Price
westerns.
is Right. Yeah, man. Yeah, I used to watch that when I'd fake sick.
Well,
So
I really want to thank you so much. It was just so great talking to you. Um,
thanks.
I you have so many interesting things that you talk about. just really an interesting person. I hope I don't make you feel like a lab
It's
rat by
all
saying
true.
that.
I'm fascinating when I really am. Just damn fascinating. I can't get enough of me. I'm just such a good guy, and I have kind eyes. A lot of people say that I have kind eyes. No, well, thank you so much. I'm so sorry I'm late. That was my fault. Geez. So I apologize for that. That's my fault, and for not shaving or having taken a shower yet, coming in with a messed up voice. So
Trust me, I haven't paid for the big higher fidelity version of Restream that I use, so it'll never show.
well, trust me, it's bad.
Well, I was really ticked. My better mic, I bought a better mic, and of course it's late, so yeah. Oh, you finally unfroze. I've been looking at you in this little corner screen that's about the
Oh,
size of a postage stamp. Trying.
oh, jeez. Oh man.
Oh, well, yes, Scott's personality is top notch. I'm probably making you really uncomfortable now.
That's what I tell everybody. Say it. I'm Scott Rouse, top notch personality.
I've been waiting with bated breath to see if and when Behavior Panel will cover interview with Pastor John Paul Miller.
Is that the guy? I think that's the guy whose wife offed herself and committed suicide. I think that's the one. I did that on Ashley Banfield's show on News Nation, like when it first came out. But I haven't, and I haven't seen that new thing. That new video of him. I'll take a look and see. If you go to Behavior X on YouTube, ask me a question on there. Ask me about that, and I may put that in an episode. Pull that out.
Yes, Scott Rouse's little channel, Scott Rouse's personal channel is what I meant to say. He has all sorts of videos that are much more informal, where he films in his backyard. He'll film on the road, and he drops so many interesting stories. They're just fun to watch.
Thanks. Yeah, it's one of those things where I'm not being technical the whole time. It's like this, like me and you sitting here. So when I'm doing them, it's no different except I probably had a shower and shaved. Other than that, But then I answer any question anybody sends me. I'll answer it. I don't care what it is. Unless it's something goofy and stupid, I won't. But if it's something about body language, I'll answer it. So it's called Behavior X. That's the name of that series, anyway.
Yeah. Yes, and he's got. You can also find him on Scott Rouse on YouTube, and of course, again, the Behavior Panel. Thank you for dropping his link, Carol. Thank you so much. And I meant to have the all the links in the description, but I had to do some screwy stuff. And
cool.
Well, thank you again. Thank you so much.
Yeah,
and,
man.
Hey, everybody in the chat, you have yourself a most awesome day. And thank you for, please like and subscribe if you like what we're doing here. And love the conversation format. It's so much more personal and fun. Good job. Thank you. I do hope everybody has themselves an awesome day. And try to be nice to somebody today. See if I can